honored and very grateful to be with all of you today. This very holy place in the Himalayas, the banks of Mother Ganga, Hrishikesh. This very, very beautiful Anand Prakash Ashram. I came a little late, so I didn't meet anybody, so I don't know anyone's names, but whoever you are, I thank you. I was asked to speak something about this book that I wrote, The Journey Home. So nice to see. One of my best friends, who was on his deathbed, made me promise to write this book. His name is Radhanath-Swami. He was an African-American man. He was born in 1950 in the ghettos of Cleveland, Ohio. In those days, if you were born in the ghetto, it was almost for certain that you would live and die in the ghetto. Although the American Constitution promises freedom, at that time, freedom was for those who were not minorities. The civil rights movement was blazing. But this young boy, by his determination, by his enthusiasm, he got a full scholarship to Princeton University, became president of his class. He was a civil rights leader in the 1960s at that college, and later became a Swami. He met our Gurudev, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and took to the path of bhakti, or devotion. And among the people that were taking guidance for him were Muhammad Ali, Nelson Mandela, Alice Coltrane, and literally tens and thousands of others. He wrote many books. He traveled around the world. And he called me to his bedside in Pennsylvania of the USA, where he said he only had a few days to live. And he asked me to remain with him as long as he lived. So since all the doctors and everyone said he only had a few days, I promised. But he stayed around another 8 weeks. And those were some of the most precious, beautiful moments of my life. Because when a man is dying, especially such a saintly, spiritual person as him, you really understand how precious time is. Unfortunately, sometimes we forget that we're all dying, and that time is precious for every one of us. There's a beautiful story about 5 millennia back. There was a king named Parikshit who was cursed to die in 7 days. And what do you think he did with his 7 days? He left his throne, which was at that time in Hastinapur, now Delhi, and he came to the bank of the Ganges River, Mother Ganga. He decided, I will not eat, and I will not drink, and I will not sleep. I just want to hear the glories of the Lord from the great sages, satsang, on the bank of the Ganges. And all the great rishis and sages and mystics, they all assembled from all over the world to be with him. Because at that time, people had mystical powers. They could travel much faster than we do in airplanes. There was thousands of great rishis. And among them, they chose one to speak, who they considered the most qualified of all of them. His name was Shukadev. He was only 16 years old. But he had such wisdom, such realization, such compassion. And King Parikshit, he asked 3 questions. Because he didn't have time to go to college and study comparative religion. He didn't have time to read all scriptures and find out what he wanted to follow. He asked of all the great scriptures and all the great literatures in the world, what is the essence? What is the foremost duty for all people at all times, in all places, and in all circumstances? And what is the primary of a person about to die? Shukadev Goswami answered those questions. And that was recorded by his father, Vedavyas, in the form of the Bhagavad Purana, or Srimad Bhagavatam. It's 18,000 verses. He knew he had 7 days. But actually no one in this world knows for sure we even have 7 minutes. Padam padam yadvi padam natesham. Life is precious. And this human life is very precious. According to the Padma Purana, there are 8,400,000 species of life within the universe. For the Atma, the soul, to enter into the human form is very rare. Atato Brahma Jigyasa, the Brahma Sutra tells us. And now you have taken this human form of life, your foremost duty is to inquire into what the truth is. What is beyond all these changing transformations of creation? Who am I? What is the purpose of life? Who is God? What is my relationship with God? Why is there suffering? Is there solutions to suffering? What is real happiness? When we ask these questions, then the actual purpose of human life begins. So sitting on the bank of the Ganga, not far from here, in a place called Shukatal, it's actually between Hrishikesh and Delhi if you drive. If you go left on the road, just about 20 minutes, half hour is it? Then there's a banyan tree, and that's where this took place. This beautiful shrines, it has been worshipped since last 5,000 years. Time is so precious. And how we utilize our time, that is the real wisdom. Just yesterday, I was invited to an unusual event. This little Swami was invited to be the keynote speaker of the All Indian Managers Association. And it was the 2nd annual symposium on marketing. And there were all these CEOs and presidents of airlines and big companies and banks. It was, to get in for each session was 10,000 rupees. Hari. But I got in for free because I was a speaker. Anyways, everyone was dressed up very, very formally with suits and ties and gowns. And I was wondering what, I asked the person, the president of this organization, what do you want this Swami to speak about? Recently I spoke at the HSBC Bank headquarters in London, England, in Canary Wharf. And there were 900 bankers that assembled to hear a lecture I was invited to give. They asked me to speak on the subject of unity in diversity from a banker's perspective. And I told them that I'm very grateful to be here. This is how I opened my speech. I said, but it's really quite amazing that you invited me to speak to you. This is one of the greatest banks in the world, and you're all among the greatest bankers in the world. And myself, I have not had a bank account or signed a check since 1969, 41 years. They looked at me like I was an alien from the most distant planet in the universe. Some of them gasped, like, what? How could you live without a bank account? How could you live without a checking account? Somehow I'm living. Anyways, I haven't had a job since 1969. And here I am speaking to marketing presidents and CEOs. And the last job I had, I was a cook in a hospital, which didn't have much marketing value. And before that, I was a busboy in a restaurant. And before that, I was working in a car wash, washing cars when I was a teenager. So that's my experience in marketing as far as that goes, paying jobs. But I shared with them something that I felt was very important. That along with marketing our products, we must understand the effect that the culture, the integrity, and the values in which we do our work will affect the world. Because how you do something is actually going to have more effect sometimes than what you do. In the sense, you may be selling this product, but the way you sell it is what's going to affect the world tremendously. Wall Street recently came crashing down because of greed, because of ego, because of a lack of compassion for humanity or anyone. So you are here in India, you have such a great, deep spiritual culture. With your values, with your integrity, do your marketing. With that foundation, you could make a great contribution to change the world. Because essentially that's what Bhagavad Gita is teaching. Bhagavad Gita is primary scripture of yoga, according to great acharyas and saints. And the person that Krishna chose to speak Bhagavad Gita to was not a sage living in the caves of the jungles of the Himalayas. He spoke to Arjuna. He wasn't a Swami. He was married. He had children. And he had the least likely job to be a yogi. Some people ask, how could I be a yogi if I'm in business? How could I be a yogi if I'm a farmer or if I'm in education? Well, Arjuna was a military man about to fight a war. Krishna wanted to make a very great emphasis that whoever you are, whatever you're doing, if you learn to do it build your life, your occupation on the foundation of truth, principles of devotion and love and compassion, then you could be a perfect yogi in whatever you do. that's what the opportunity we all have on us. But the tendency is to procrastinate. I have something else to do today, and let me get this done tomorrow. And after I finish this, recently I spoke at Princeton University I was on stage with Dr. Cornel West, and he said something that I've quoted many times. He said, one of the problems in this world is we are constantly being bombarded by weapons of mass distraction. So many distractions. But here I was with a very beautiful saintly man who was expecting to die within a few days. So every moment was so precious. I didn't read the newspaper to him. We didn't turn on any televisions. These things really don't mean much of anything when you really go to the root of what's really important in life. We promised each other that we would only speak subjects about God, about Krishna, about Ram. We would only speak the philosophy of devotion and wisdom. And we would only speak about saintly people. And we would share our experiences and our realizations with each other. That 8 weeks was so beautiful. I never knew on this human level that there could be such deep love between two human beings. The love, not of the senses, enthusiasm to love God together. It was so deep, it was so wonderful. I remember one day he was in so much pain. His entire body was shaking uncontrollably. His cancer would just go into all different types of variations. He went through every stage possible to the end. This is just close to the end. And I tried to speak to him, but I saw that he couldn't concentrate because his body was in so much turmoil. So I just began to chant this Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. And he started chanting with me. And suddenly, there was the most ecstatic, blissful, spontaneous smile on his face. And it was quite a smile, because he had a very black, dark face and very white teeth. He was smiling, and tears. I never saw him cry due to pain or anxiety or frustration, but tears of happiness, of joy were flooding his eyes. And he held my hand, and he said, Swami, it doesn't get any better than this. Now, you're listening to me, but imagine being there. He was emaciated. He had tumors all over his body. One of his legs was amputated. He was about a third of his weight. And there he was, smiling and crying in ecstasy, telling me it doesn't get any better than this. And I listened to him. And then he said, I would not trade my place for anyone else in the world. And he said, I've never tasted the sweetness of God's names like trade my place with anyone else. He just said, this is so beautiful. I know where I'm going, and I know where I am. These were the kind of moments we shared every day.